Good morning. I'm going to talk briefly about Mengele's lab. As we know, Dr. Joseph Mengele was a major Nazi war criminal whose sadistic experiments were universally reviled as not real science. But the sad truth is that Mengele was engaging in real science, albeit without moral constraint. Mengele was doing actual research. He was contributing to our knowledge and understanding of the human body and our knowledge and understanding of medicine. Because, like it or not, Mengele's work, no matter how sadistic, was carried out for scientific reasons. He wasn't torturing victims for the fun of torturing them. He was doing scientific research with no moral constraint, with no concern. His purpose was not to be cruel. Cruelty was just a side effect. It was a consequence of what he was doing. But his purpose was to learn, to know, and to understand. And indeed, much of his research would, after the war, be published by his slaves. The slave doctors of Auschwitz were various people who, for whatever reason, were sent to Auschwitz and were taken out of the line by Mengele personally, because he recognized them as his fellow scientists, brilliant men and women who he put to work as slaves, conducting scientific research as slaves, and performing scientific studies and tests on other slaves, not for the sake of cruelty, but for the sake of understanding. Again, cruelty was just a side effect. And like it or not, we do owe these slave doctors and even Joseph Mengele himself a debt of gratitude. We all benefit today from the research that was done in Mengele's lab, research which was republished long after the war, throughout the late 40s and through the 50s and into the early 60s, by the slaves who, having been freed, went on to lay low for a while and then republish all their old notes under their own names. And these doctors, these scientists, these slaves, forced to participate in Mengele's research, are today associated with every benefit that we have gained from Mengele's lab. But the fact is that Mengele gave them the forum to do their research, gave them the place to do their studies, gave them the opportunity to learn. Horrifying as it was, obscene as it was still scientific research. Mengele was not rubbing his hands together with glee, cackling, hunched over. He didn't have a servant that ran around saying, "Yes, master, ha 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 ha." It was all white lab coats, rubber gloves, sterile environments, and careful documentation. This was scientific research. This was not torture. There was no attempt to extract information. This was not sadism. The purpose was not cruelty. Cruelty was just the side effect. Cruelty was there by necessity, by horrible necessity. And we need to remember that, but we also need to remember that we have all benefited from the research that was conducted in the hell that was Auschwitz. We have all benefited from it. Every single one of us. Anyone who has received surgery after 1947, anyone who was a fighter pilot after 1947. Anyone who was involved in any kind of serious medical research after 1947, or the recipient of any modern surgical developments after 1947, all of these people benefited from the work done, from the actual scientific research done. And it is a shame that the only name that has come through is Mengele, because I would love to see a monument with the names of every single one of his test subjects, his human guinea pigs, all those human beings who died, a monument to them with their names on it, and the scientific field that their deaths contributed to our greater understanding of, so that we can all know exactly who died so that we could have this. Unfortunately, the only name that has really come down to us is Mengele. Everybody who worked in his lab and later published independently did everything in their power to erase their connection with Mengele. And while I'm not calling for us to salute Mengele, I am calling for us to try to find a way to memorialize the human beings who died in his laboratory complex, and their contribution. The contribution of the human beings who died in Mengele's lab so that we could have modern medical science as it is today. I don't even know how to express my appreciation for that. There aren't any words. There is just I don't even know how to say it.